Hello and welcome back to the Spicy Pisces podcast. I'm your host, Emma Jepson, and I am so happy you're here. Thank you for joining me today. So this is officially the first episode. Last episode was more so of an intro, talking about who I am, what I want to talk about, why I chose this name for the podcast, and just a little bit more background on me, and what I see this becoming. And I also talked about how my Instagram account, Eats by Emma, and my own journey of dealing with an eating disorder and my recovery journey has been a big part of my life, and main reason I wanted to create this podcast and why I started my Instagram account and my website and blog. And that's not the only thing I want to talk about on here, but that is a big part of why I'm starting it, and I guess just who I am today too. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about my recovery journey, and because I don't think I've ever given a really in-depth explanation of what I've gone through and how I got to where I am today. I think I maybe have written up a few captions about it, but more so just personal journaling and in therapy and talking to other people. I've never actually put it out in this community before, but I think it would be really cool to do that and share what I've gone through, just because I know some other people can resonate with it for sure, and it always helps just to hear like what someone else has gone through. Maybe someone else listening to this is going through something I went through similarly at the moment, and I can share how I worked through some of these things and overcame some of these mindsets and habits, and how I got to where I am today, because I have the happiest, healthiest relationship with food in my body I've ever had in my life, and I just want you to know that it is possible, and you don't have to continue living a life where food controls every aspect of what you do, and you're constantly thinking about like calories in a dish and how healthy something is, or your weight and your jean size. Like, that's not all there is to life, and life just truly becomes so much better once you can overcome all of that. And it is incredibly hard changing your perspective on diet culture and kind of caring less about it and not making it a part of your life, because you can totally just choose to dismiss it and say, I'm not going to give in to any of this, and which is really hard to do, but I just want to share that it is possible. And I guess I'll share that through sharing my story and how I overcame everything. But it's two things to start up. I just want to offer a trigger warning. I am going to talk about some habits I did and some topics such as like counting calories and body checking that might be a little sensitive and triggering to some people if you are dealing with these habits or are just recently overcoming them, or even if you are recovered, and these are just very triggering topics. So I just want to put that statement up in the beginning. So just beware, I guess, if you're listening. I'm just going to share it factually about what occurred to me, but I just wanted to state that. And then also, I'm probably going to revisit this whole topic again in another episode, because I wrote down a few things I wanted to share, but I couldn't remember some stuff, and I'll probably remember certain aspects or stories, I don't know, right, probably when listening to this, when I'm editing it, and so I might create another episode and share more, or like bring them up and bring some other things up in other episodes. But this is just a general overview of my story and my own struggles with an eating disorder, disordered eating habits. Let's just start from the beginning. So I recently started seeing a new therapist, and she's incredible and definitely a better fit personality-wise and interest-wise and experience-wise for me. And in our first official session, something we focused on is creating a timeline for my history of just body image and food related topics, which is really helpful. And I wrote down some things that I guess I knew, but writing it down just makes a huge difference in talking about things. So then she asked me, what's the earliest memory I have of either like something related to body or food. It doesn't need to be negative, positive, it can be neutral, but just something related to that. And I mentioned how in fourth grade I was visiting some of my mom's like community family friends. And I guess at this time I'd started travel soccer and got a little bit lankier just because I was running a lot. So my body changed. And something we also talked about is that, like, in therapy, is that bodies change, and we don't need to associate getting smaller with being good and getting bigger with being bad. Like, there's certain life experiences you have and things you go through, and puberty and having kids and starting stressful jobs and so much more, and bodies change, but that you can see it as a neutral thing. It doesn't need to be positive or negative, or like my body changed, so I have to change something, and I have to, like, you don't have to get all crazy about it and controlling, like seeing it more as a neutral thing, which I did at the time here, but this is when I started associating my body changing with it being a positive or negative thing, and that was really interesting to notice. But basically, we were going over to this family's house, and I remember they opened the door, and the first thing I remember the mom saying to me was like, "Oh, you look good," and like, "You look like you thinned out," or something like that. Something along the lines of making a comment on my appearance and it being positive. And I just remember being really confused, and I was like 9, so I don't even know if I responded to that. I had no idea what to say. And I was just very caught off guard. And again, like, I had never had anyone that I remember. I might look back and find other things before this that were similar experience, but this was the first time I really had someone comment on my appearance, like, in my life, and I barely knew this person as well. And I think this was the first time I noticed that people pay attention to the way you look and your body size and appearance. And I don't know if I associated it with being negative or positive. I don't remember being super upset afterwards. I think I was more so just confused, and then I picked up on the fact that this is something that people pay attention to, which is really interesting. And the next thing we talked about was, so this was like over the summer, I think, going into 5th grade, and I had bought this white dress from the store that I thought was really pretty. It was like this lace with a black bow in the back, and I was like, oh, I want to wear this I think I wore it to school a few times, but I really wanted to wear it at my 5th grade graduation at the end of the year, because I think all of my friends and I agreed that we'd wear white, or that was just like the thing to do then. So I like wore it a few times in early fall when it was still warmer, and when the time came for like June and end of the school year celebrations, I think I tried it on and it didn't fit me the same way. It was a little bit snugger, and my travel soccer had finished up, I think, and I don't know if I was as active in sports, or my body changed. And also, like, at the time, like, you're literally growing all the time, and when you're 9 and 10 and like those ages right before puberty, and even in puberty, your body changes so much, and that's perfectly okay. Like, that's just part of growing into your adult body. And I think I didn't see that as a negative thing. I knew that my body was changing because I was growing, and I wasn't the same size, obviously, as I was when I was in 3rd grade, because I'd be like super tiny then as a 5th grader. But I remember that I did go back to the store, and they didn't have the same dress, but they had a very similar white lace with like the spaghetti straps or whatever was in style at the time, and I got a different size and I wore that. And I remember having so much fun at the event. It was so much fun to hang out with my friends and have one last hurrah before we went off to middle school. And I look back at photos, and I just remember, like, I was like so happy. I had the best time. We like befriended the DJ, and like there's kettle corn, popcorn, and everyone signed each other's yearbooks, and we got like tattoos and the glow in the dark. What are they called? Oh my god, the glow in the dark bands. What are they called? Glow sticks. Yeah, I think that's what they're called. Like glow sticks, and they turned off the lights, and like we're all dancing around and having fun. And I didn't really pay much attention to like my body, but I think that at the time, like, the dress that I was a little caught off guard, but I didn't negatively impact then my experience. So basically my whole point with sharing this story as well, and I'll talk about it more in the end, is that these behaviors are learned and these habits and thought processes are learned. You're not born thinking this way. So it's okay to not agree with it and say no to it and be like, I'm not going to give in to any of this or think this way, because we're not born that way, and you don't have to choose to think that way, even though a lot of people think like starving yourself and being as thin as possible and striving to look a certain way is like your main purpose in life. Like, you can choose to say, fuck no, I'm not doing that. Like, hell no. I'm not happy when I do that. My life has so much more purpose when I'm not doing that. So anyway, that's just me going off on a rant about this because I'm very passionate about this topic, and I'll talk more about it in the end. But basically, I was still able to have fun even though my body changed, and maybe I like grew a little bit and I was a larger size, but that didn't impact how much fun the event was for me. So then middle school came. This is also when I started negatively seeing my body and wishing it looked another way, not necessarily for maybe like so this is kind of, I want to talk about later on in like later in high school and college, but the whole male gaze and the whole needing to be thin and having this ideal body shape to be considered attractive and desired. So that comes along later, and that this wasn't necessarily why I was seeing my body in a negative light. It was more so because of lacrosse and other sports as well, and wanting to be seen, noticed by coaches and seen as a better player and whatever. So that was like a little bit different, but that's when I started not loving my body. And now I look back and I know that everyone's genetics are so different, and like there's only like a minimal number of things that are like in your power to change, I guess, but a lot of it is just predisposed genetics, and you can't really change that, and whatever you get, and I think it's super cool that whatever you get is like a mix of all of the people before you that chose to love each other and have kids, and you're just like the culmination of all of their genetics together. Like, I think it's super cool now. Freshman year of high school, that's when I started to fill out a little bit more. Like puberty hit and like curves were coming in and hips, and I was like, oh no, like I don't have a straight build anymore, and I don't fit into PacSun or Brittany Melville or Urban Outfitters jeans. And both me and my therapist agreed that Brandy Melville is evil. And it's definitely more of like a preteen store in my opinion, when people like it. Not everyone's meant to have a straight build. They're perfectly like tall and lanky build, which is a lot of their clothes are catered to that. And I don't love the whole one size fits all thing, because that's like BS, like complete bullshit. That's not true at all. But I think it's a cute store if you're like a preteen. Like, I remember seeing everyone having those like navy blue and white striped shirts, and I just thought it was cute at the time, but now I would never support it. And I was actually walking, so I go to school in Boston and they have a store in Newbury Street, and I was walking past with a friend because they blocked up the street and had like a fall market, so we were walking through and I just saw this huge line out the store. It was like a Saturday or Sunday, like huge line out the store. I'm like, I was like, I'm running away right now. It's like, I'm not going anywhere near here. But yeah, so because a lot of my friends shopped at those stores, or we'd go to the mall after school or on a weekend, and I didn't necessarily fit into some of the clothes that they had, so I thought something was wrong, and I was like, I need to revert back to the way I looked in 8th grade or 7th grade to fit into these clothes again. And now I realize that like it's not healthy to try to want to look like your adolescent, preteen, teen body, because I mean, especially as a woman, your body changes. And now that I turned 20 back in February, and once you enter your 20s, also your body starts changing because it's prepping for like childbearing activities and other things, and metabolism, I guess people say, it slows down after you're not a teenager, and I'm also not playing sports like year round anymore, so my body has changed, and I'll talk about that towards the end of this episode, and I think in another one as well. But I know that it's now, you don't need to try to look like your younger self, your younger body, because that's not healthy and bodies change, and that's perfectly okay. It's not a bad thing. You can see it as a neutral thing. But at the time, I was like, oh, I should try to revert back or do something to look this way again. And also, oh my god, so they also had thankfully they shut it down. I was like, get this thing out of here. But they had a Victoria's Secret in my downtown when I was like in middle and high school, and we would always go into town on Friday if the weather was pretty nice, and we'd just walk around and go to Claire's. We'd get like a slice of pizza, Qdoba, get some tacos from there. Oh my god, the line out the Starbucks would always be insane. Everyone wanted like a frappuccino or something or a hot chocolate, but that was a fun time. But we'd always go to the Victoria's Secret, and like you'd get they had one of those deals with like the underwear, like 7 for 27. I remember we'd always go crazy over that, or the perfumes that they had as well, like the pink ones. I always thought those were so much fun, and the little toiletry bags they had. But I remember you'd look at the photos on the wall of these like women, and I would just be like, I don't like anything like that. And I was like 12 or whatever, so clearly, these are like people who are typically a lot older and have gone through puberty, and their bodies will look different than like a 12-year-old's for the most part. And I didn't take that into consideration. Two, they're so highly edited, and I just listened actually to the Real Pod Victoria Garrick episode with, I forgot their names, but she had 2 Victoria's Secret angel models come on and talk about their experience with that and their modeling career. And they were like, honestly, like we'd stand next to the photo sometimes in the store, and like people wouldn't even recognize that it was us in the photo, because they do so much editing and there's so much makeup and like staging and everything that goes into it. So they're not even real people. Like that's not even them up there. And 3, it's just, that's not a realistic reflection of what people and women look like. Like that's not, and it's just the whole like the sexualization of women. And obviously I love the whole like empowerment, like being confident wearing this stuff and showing off the way you look, but that's not it. I don't even know if they're like this today, and I know they've had a lot of hate and they've done a lot of rework and all of this stuff to be a little bit more body positive, but I think that's more so on like the pink side of things. But I just, back then it was the whole like, if you don't look like this, you're not sexy, you're not hot, you're not attractive. And I definitely internalized that as a very impressionable preteen, teen, adolescent child. And so yeah, that I just hated that place. I'm so happy it's gone now. And a lot of them are shutting down actually. Like I know I've heard a lot of malls and whatever are getting rid of them, but that was a big thing. And this was kind of getting closer to when the eating disorder kind of actually started picking up. But I think so. Then I started club field hockey, and I met some really incredible people through it, and I definitely improved immensely as a player. And I did like the coaching to a certain degree, but it was definitely very toxic looking back. And I know some people really loved this form of leadership in coaching, but it just wasn't a good fit for me. Personality wise, who I am as a person, the way I like to be coached. Now I have a lot better understanding of that, which I'm grateful for. But at the time, I didn't really have a choice because my sister was on the team and my parents didn't want to have us in 2 separate clubs, and they really liked this coaching style. So, but there was a lot of comments on like body image and the way people looked, and also at the time I was very impressionable, and I didn't have the level of maturity or the level of awareness about myself to kind of reflect on this stuff. And I also didn't have people in my life I could talk to about this stuff because they didn't understand it, or they didn't see it as like a bad thing, or they just thought it was normal. So I was like, oh, this is normal to be talking about bodies and things this way. And I remember one day my sister got a comment from one of the head coaches and just about the way she looked. And she had been, I think I was a freshman, so she was a junior, 2 years older than me, school year wise. she was a junior in high school, and she was looking to get recruited for field hockey for college. So she was like working out a lot more, practicing a lot more. Her body changed. She just happened to lean out. And I remember this coach, he like called her out in front of everyone, or I don't know if we were in like a session with him or whatever group we were in with him, but he was like, oh, like you lost her baby fat. And everyone thought it was funny, but something felt off to me. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I just felt really uncomfortable about that comment, even though it wasn't directed at me. And now I realize that it's like not okay to talk. Like that's just a really triggering thing to say to one, a teenage girl, to like anyone. You shouldn't be talking about people's appearances like that. And I don't know. People say like, oh, it's a positive comment, like just take it, stop taking it so personally. But even if it's a positive comment, you're still reinforcing that you quote unquote look better if you look leaner or this certain way. And I don't make comments about people's bodies anymore, or like I try to stay away from all that. Or if someone says something like that to me, I try to like say how I'd appreciate if you don't talk about that stuff. And I know it's not like a malicious comment, and it's supposed to be like a good thing, but just like it's a little triggering to me. Like explain a little bit what I've gone through, and yeah. So that wasn't a good thing to say, and I definitely internalized that, and that also fed into where it kind of started to spiral. And I think it mainly started, it started my sophomore year of high school. This probably happened my freshman year, the comment the coach said or whatever. And I was going into my sophomore year. So I played field hockey in high school all 4 years, and I think freshman year I played JV, and I was like super happy with the team, and I loved everyone, and it was definitely a lot of running, more so than I was expecting. Like preseason was hell that first year. I was not fully prepared, but not a lot of other people were like up to the level of I guess that they expected from us. So it was fun like going through it with other people and like the laughs we had. But anyway, that's a whole nother story, like sports and stuff that I could also talk about in another episode. But specifically with this, so going into my sophomore year, I knew I wanted to make varsity this year, and I put in a lot of work over the summer. I was running a lot more, and I didn't really think about food at the time. Like I knew I ate things that made me feel good and fueled me, and I didn't restrict or necessarily like have a negative relationship with food, but it was more so with exercise. And so that season I made varsity, and I was really happy with my performance and the fact that I made varsity that year. And I kept up with the running. I was like, you know what, let me keep up with the running after the season ends. And I know that like the year before I kind of fell off with the running, just because like school got really hectic, and I was like, it'd probably be easier just to keep up with it, because now I'm like, what, maybe considering getting recruited, I'm going to more like recruiting events. I want to look good, feel good, perform well. So kept up with the running and all the working out. It was like almost every day with like practices and all that mixed in. But I also started watching some YouTubers that weren't the healthiest for me to watch at such an impressionable age. And it kind of fell into what I eat in a day videos and the thumbnails. Oh my god, the thumbnails that these people put up. They're like total clickbait, and I hate the fact that, and again, like people just genetically look certain ways, and these people that have very unrealistic standards of like bodies, just like, and also like the editing that they do and the posing. And there's like, I love how people are posting these videos now of like these gym videos where they pose in one way and then they look relaxed in the next, and it's like totally different photos and like images that you get, but they're both the same body. So I love that that's coming to light, but at the time I didn't realize that. I'm like, oh my god, like they look like that all the time in the photo. I'm like, let me look at what they eat, because like I want to look like that. And also this was at the time where I was like a sophomore in high school, and there was a lot more like dating going on, relationships with people, and the male gaze that started to like influence me a little bit more, and I wanted to look like quote unquote like attractive, and I thought I needed to look a certain way to be considered attractive, which is like, now I know your worth and your value and how attractive you are is like so much more than simply what you look like. And yeah, so I'll talk about that later. But I just started watching these videos, and they literally show like half a bowl of oatmeal in the morning, and like an egg for lunch, or maybe like a small salad, and then dinner is like literally a fourth a cup of pasta, and then they have like a square of dark chocolate for dessert, and they're like, I'm done. And I'm like, that's not healthy or realistic or sustainable. Like, that's actually very disordered and not okay to be posting about. One, like, a lot of these people are not registered dietitians, and they don't actually like understand, like, they're promoting it like they are, right? Like, they don't actually know like if this is beneficial or not. They're eating all of these things, and they're like, you should be eating this, like the lemon water whole thing, the hot water with lemon is supposed to be like a detox drink in the morning and de-bloat you. And like, I still fucking like no idea if that's true, but they're promoting it like it was this like literally like pedestal. They put it up on this pedestal and we're like, you need to do this, like it works for me, and like, look at the way I look, like you should be doing it too if you want to look like me. And even if they are registered dietitians, there's so many people out there that are promoting these insanely disordered, triggering, toxic behaviors and habits around food, even though they are registered. And I just think you ultimately need to do that, what works best for you, and truly listen to your body, because with all of this news and the diet culture and the comments that people have made to us in the past that maybe we don't even realize we're still holding on to, or we've internalized, and that's why we have the relationship with food we do today. Once you kind of like do all the work and you start actually listening to your body and what works for you and what you're craving, and seeing if you need like more nutrient dense food, maybe you need like some more protein, or what you really need is like a cookie or something like that. Like, you just need to do what works for you, because everyone needs totally different things. All of our needs are so different. And you don't need to eat the way of someone else, or like just because it works for them, or you think you should be eating this way, or I don't know. People just overcomplicate the whole concept of like your diet, and not diet relating to dieting, but just like what you consume, like the food you consume. People just make it so overcomplicated, and you have to like overthink everything, or you're like, if I'm craving chocolate, oh, it really means you're thirsty, or if you're whatever, it just means you need some more protein or something like that. And I guess like some of it is true, like if you're stressed out, like obviously, like, and also when I was a child, I forgot to mention this, but I was bullied as a child. I don't know if it was like, I never got like shoved in lockers, or I don't know, like pushed into a puddle on the sidewalk, or never like physical, but just like girls verbally mean comments being made, and exclusion, and all of that. And as I said, I've always been a little bit more introverted, and as a kid I found it harder to make friends. And I was also okay just like doing my own thing and not having a huge group, but I was definitely made to feel like I didn't belong in some groups. And I think as a child I was a little bit like, I don't know if it was in probably like earlier on in elementary school, but I was always a little bit like bigger. And I think it's because I loved food. I've always loved food and cooking and trying new foods and like making fun creations. But I think I did internalize some of this, and I took it out in food. It was like an outlet for me for stress. And that was like my stress outlet for me. And I know other people, it's like going out with people, or like I just listened to this podcast of this woman who worked in like investment banking for like 20 years, and she basically explained the whole negative toll it takes on people, and how she lost herself, and everyone on her team had some sort of outlet. And for some people it was like a sex addiction, or having an affair, or drugs, or alcohol, or partying all the time, and or workaholic behavior. And like everyone takes it out, and that's more for like adults. I don't think like a 9-year-old would be doing any of these things, but like just goes to show like everyone has their own outlet. And for me it just seems like it's always been food, whether it's been more on the binging end of the spectrum or restricting. So I've dealt with both ends. But back to what I was saying before about the people on YouTube and the content I was consuming, it was definitely very toxic and fueled and led to my spiral of how the eating disorder developed a lot more. But I think also the whole we can all eat the same way, and we're not gonna look the same, and that's perfectly okay because no two bodies are meant to look exactly alike. And I think that's so beautiful. Everyone's built so differently, and we've just been accustomed to believe that being tall and skinny is or the Victoria's Secret model build, that's the way everyone should look. And if you're not like that, you're not beautiful, or you're not worthy, or you don't have any value, or you're not cool or worthy of being seen or respected. And I think that that's just total bullshit, because your worth stems far beyond that, and I'm so much more than a body to be looked at, and I have so much more to offer and provide, and I am cool and funny and smart and courageous and a good friend, and I'm a good listener, and I'm good at the work I do, and I'm a good sister or daughter, whatever. So much more that goes into it. But the whole but then at the time I was oh, if I eat like her, I'm gonna look like her. So and then I eventually came across this one YouTuber, and I'm gonna say the name. I don't care about also I probably have 10 people listening to this right now, but her name is Liesel Jane or something like that, and she had these videos where a lot of the clickbait. She was how I lost 30 pounds in 3 months, and I was oh my god, whatever, I want to lose as much as possible as fast as I can. And she promoted eating 1,200 calories in a day, so she'd meal prep everything to fit her calorie intake, and her husband, or I don't know if they were dating or married or whatever, but the man in her life, she would meal prep for him as well, and she'd always give him a little bit more of the food she made, so she'd take about a third of it, and he'd take 2/3. And also within that, so the calorie thing, and then also this, you can't eat the same way as a guy or someone else in your life. Because I'm a girl, I eat less than this person, or I shouldn't be eating as much as my male person in my life or whatever. And that just fed into that whole belief for me, which is again, you need to eat whatever makes you feel good, and however much makes you feel fueled and good and satisfied. And every day it's going to change too. You don't need to make every day the same. You don't need to eat the same thing every single day, the same amount of calories in a day. For example, I just wrapping up my period right now, and I'm not as ravenous today, but yesterday I was completely insatiable. I kept eating. I made lunch, and then I had a second lunch, and then a snack after, because I just didn't feel full. And I made sure to wait as well. I've learned to give my body 15 minutes after I eat, just to digest everything, and because that's when I start feeling more satiated and just listening to my body again. Actually, so that's another topic as well. How did I learn to become an intuitive eater and be more in tune with my body and my hunger and hunger cues and craving cues? But anyway, I just ate so much more food because I was so hungry, and I've learned that it's okay to eat more on certain days, and my hunger cues are going to vary daily, and even throughout the day. I might be super hungry in the morning, and in the evening I might not be as hungry, or vice versa. And that's just part of being a human being, and things change. Your body needs different needs on certain days depending on what's going on with it, how active you are, stressed you are, how much mental work you're doing. There's just, and if you're on a period, and so many things go into it, and that's okay to not have it be consistent every single day. And that's something I've had to learn, and now that I have a lot, my relationship with food is a lot better. And in this video though, in her videos that this person was promoting, it was eating the same thing every day, and pretty much the same amount of calories every day, and pretty much the same meals every day. And a lot of the foods, they weren't really, I know sometimes people promote these really bland recipes that are literally no seasoning at all. I don't know, but some of the foods are actually pretty tasty, but it was just the fact that she was promoting, like, you need to cap it off at this amount, and, like, once you hit this, like, you're done for the day. Like, it doesn't matter if you still want something more, like, you need to end it here to, like, meet your fitness goals or whatever, like, to get this dream body, you need to cut it off here and cap it. And I started counting calories, and in the beginning, it was really weird. I was, like, it wasn't super, I mean, this is toxic, but compared to how it got, it wasn't super toxic in the beginning. Like, I was still eating, like, foods that later ended up becoming fear foods for me. I wasn't cutting out anything necessarily. I was just paying more attention to, like, how much I actually ate in a day, and it made me start realizing, like, how many calories some foods have. And, like, for example, peanut butter, that didn't become a fear food, but it became like so I'd still eat it every day, but it became something I'd literally measure out with first a tablespoon, and then I was like, I needed to be super nitpicky about it and, like, on point with the calories. So I put it on a scale that I bought and, like, zero off the scale and then put it on and then scoop out, like, literally, I still remember it, which is horrible. That's just how much I did it, but it was like 16 or 15 grams. That was, like, equivalent to a tablespoon, and, like, the 95 calories on the back, and I was like, that's all I can have. So I'd put that on, and I'd literally measure it out every single day in my oatmeal, and that's when it became really negative. But in the beginning, it was more so just, like, paying more attention. Just, like, I didn't realize some things had certain, like, I just started associating then, like, certain foods, because they were low calorie. I was like, oh, this is better because I can eat more of it. When really I was just hungry and needed to eat, like, instead of rice cakes, like, proper bread or carbs. And I saw that carbs had a lot of calories, I guess, and I just started seeing that as a food group I needed to cut out, or not even cut out fully in the beginning, but just minimize how much I had. And so it started with that, and then I started making, like, swaps, and so, like, rice cakes over regular bread, and I started doing bonza pasta over regular pasta, which, if you're, like, I know if you're gluten-free, it's a good option, or if you're just trying to get more protein in, or it genuinely makes you feel better and you like the way it tastes, like, go for it. But I just did it because it had, like, more nutritional value, I guess, because it had added protein, but I, like, fucking hated the way it tasted. Like, I'd add on so many spices and, like, vegetables into it, and, like, marinara or, like, tomato sauce, and I'd make it taste a lot better, but it was, like, disgusting. And maybe I just wasn't making it properly, but by itself it was never that tasty. And I mean, I do get it, like, if you want to add more protein and you're looking for, like, a more quote unquote nutrient dense option, and I do understand the whole, like, the glycemic whatever, like, regular pasta with white flour might spike your glucose levels, and I don't know, people were talking about that in videos I watched. But now that I'm in recovery and I'm like, if I want a bowl of plain pasta with butter and lots of cheese, I'm gonna make that and let myself eat it and enjoy it and not feel guilty for it. Like, I don't need to add an alternative just because I'm craving something that's quote unquote not healthy or good for me. And trying to think of other swaps I made. Oh, I never did, like, the PB fit over peanut butter. I think I just love peanut butter too much. And I heard, I don't know if I ever tried it even, but I just heard it wasn't as good. And the whole concept was weird to me, like, powdered peanuts and you mix it with water. Just never got around to trying it. But well, then also I was, like, playing sports a lot, and this was, like, field hockey practices and season and then I was playing, like, lacrosse in the spring, and I wasn't even taking into consideration, like, how much I was studying throughout the day and, like, how much energy that takes and expends, and then all the walking around school, and, like, I didn't realize how many, and I'm saying calories here, but I don't mean this in, like, a negative way. I mean it in, like, just a biological meaning, but, like, I didn't realize how many calories I actually needed to fuel myself throughout the day, and it was, like, way more than what I was actually eating. And I remember that I went to bed, like, starving the first few nights, and it was so hard to fall asleep. I got horrible sleep. I was really cranky, moody, but I was like, I need to like fight past this and like have the willpower to whatever, like do it for the body, do it for the image, do it for the smaller jean size. And that's sadly what motivated me to keep going. And I started losing weight pretty quickly then in the beginning, and like I noticed my jean size started changing, and I talked about this with my therapist as well, and I started getting like positive comments on the way I looked, and I felt better shopping in stores because of my jean size, and like just feeling clothes like shrink on me. That like gave me this like this spark. I was like, oh my god, I'm doing something great, like I'm doing something right, I gotta keep going, it's working, people are giving me comments and whatever. And this is why I don't like giving comments on people's bodies either, because you never know what someone is going through. And I don't think anyone, not even like in my family, really had any idea like mentally what I was going through in the battle I was fighting. And giving these types of comments is so bad and can spiral people's experiences and their habits even more. And like, you never know what anyone is going through, so just don't. It's better to not say it, even if you think it's positive and there's no malicious intent. Just like, don't say it. That's my like 2 cents on that. But yeah, so then it started spiraling, and that started in like November of my sophomore year of high school, and by like February, March that year, I lost my period. And I didn't see it as a bad thing. I was like, oh my god, I don't have to go through this anymore, like monthly. And I didn't realize that was like a really key indicator that like, red light, put a pause on this, something is really wrong. You need to have your period as an indicator that everything is working properly in your body, assuming you have like a uterus inside of you. And like the way my doctor later explained it is that like, if it's not like a primary system in your body that it needs to feel, so, and it's like my body basically went into survival mode then, because if I don't have if I'm not giving myself or eating the proper amount of energy I need, it's going to turn off these like second and tertiary systems and only supply the primary organs and systems in your body. And I didn't really realize that at the time, so I just kept going with what I was doing, because I kept, again, like, positive reinforcement. And this was one of the things that really made the negative turn take a really negative turn, and this is when it went really, really downhill. And it was the summer of right before my junior year of high school, and it was a preseason practice for field hockey, and we were in the weight room in our high school, and the coaches had us break up into groups of about 2 or 3, and we just went in stations. So like, some of us would start with the cardio machine, some of us would go to arms or leg machine, or do like a mat ab workout or something like that. And I was on the elliptical with like 2 other girls in my group, and one of our coaches calls me over, and I was like, I don't know if she's going to ask me something about my sister, because my sister just started college, and I don't know if she was going to ask how she was doing, or like something. I was kind of scared. I didn't know what to expect, and all the coaches are standing there, and some of the girls on my team as well were around and could hear, and she's like, you look really good. And I was like, oh, like, thank you. And she's like, what have you been doing? Like, have you started a diet or changed the way you eat, or or your workouts or something? And I didn't say anything about food. I was like thinking about that. I remember I was thinking about that at the time, and I didn't say anything, because looking back, I'm not exactly sure why I didn't, but I think I was almost ashamed or embarrassed about it. But I was like, oh no, I've just been running a lot more, like, and that was true also. I was trying to get in a little bit better shape for this preseason, just so it wasn't as brutal in the heat, like running in literally 95-degree weather around the track. And you can see like the heat waves in the distance. That was always like literally my least favorite week of the entire year. But so I'd been running a lot more and keeping up with that, and that's what I told her, and she's like, oh, like, you look really good though. And then she sent me back to my elliptical machine, and the other girls that I was partnered with asked me like what they said to me, and I just told them what she said, like on a more basic level, and then I forgot what we said after that. But I just remember like getting that type of positive comment from the varsity coach at the time, and again, she didn't mean it in a malicious way. She didn't mean it in like I don't think she knew that this was a very like, I took this so personally and like saw it as a really, like, I'll explain after this, but I don't think she knew that this would lead to what it did. But, and I'm not blaming her for anything, and it was all like my own internalizing of this. But this is again why I don't like commenting on people's bodies or appearance, because you never know what they're going through. So I was like, oh my god, the varsity coach recognizes me. She like thinks I look good. Like I might have a chance of making or because I was already on varsity at the time, but like I have a better chance of starting and like playing the whole game this year, and or just being noticed by the coach, right? And like also being called out for your body changing. Like I knew mine had been changing, and having someone comment about it in a positive way was like, obviously we like compliments and positive feedback. So of course I was like, oh my god, I'm doing something right. I gotta keep going with this. And so I was like lifting as well. So I had muscle on me. I was definitely leaner than I should have been, but I still had muscle. And once the season actually started, it's just a lot of running, and we don't do a lot of lifting. Although we have a few practices here and there, I didn't have time to do any lifting on my own, so I dropped a lot of the muscle mass that I had, and I got a lot weaker. The beginning of the season, I was able to, if anyone's listening and you played field hockey, then you know what I'm referring to, but if you don't, you're gonna be like, what the hell is this? But I was able to like drive the ball and reverse chip and like do aerials and all of these cool skills. Like it felt a lot easier to do. And I just remember like even halfway through the season, it just became a lot harder. Like I didn't have as much strength to hit the ball, and I just felt like if I tried to do it at the same speed and the same intensity as I had like prior to the season starting, it just felt a lot harder, and like I couldn't hit it as far. So I was losing a lot of my strength. And I remember they do like the whole uniform thing in the beginning of the season, and I had gotten like a size in one skirt, and halfway through the season or towards the end, I asked if I could get a size down because it had gotten a lot. It was really big on me, and like I couldn't even tie the knot really like on my waist. Like it wouldn't really stay up. So that was another indicator that it was not going great at all. And by the end of it, I remember, so I hadn't seen my sister then either. In like since we dropped her off at school back in early August, or I don't even think I went with her because I had preseason, but since I saw her before she left. But we went up to see her in like late October, and I remember she made a comment about the way I looked, but not in like a negative way. She was just like, I think she was just shocked at how much leaner I had gotten, and even in the course of like a month and a half. And that was like, she's someone's opinion who I like really trust. And I don't know if she said it to me or if she texted something, or like if this is what we talked about at a later date, but no, she must have said something, because I remember I told her like I was gonna change stuff and I was gonna start eating like dessert again and like eating a little bit more. So we did talk about that, and she wanted to make sure I was like gonna start changing some of the habits again. And this was also, so I was a junior in high school, starting to look at colleges as well, and I was started taking AP classes at the time, so I was really stressed out. And I think a large part of it stemmed from like control issues and wanting to have something to have like, I guess, power over, when really now I'm looking back and I didn't have any power over the choices. It was like the food that was controlling me, which is just funny to look back at how I thought I was actually controlling something. And so she made a comment, and also at the time I was literally, for breakfast, I was eating like 2 hard-boiled eggs and one of those Chobani like single serve cups of yogurt with some berries and honey. And that's what I'd have for breakfast. Lunch, I'd do like literally only one slice of bread. One slice of bread, of whole wheat bread with like a tablespoon of peanut butter and a tablespoon of jelly and some like carrots and hummus or blueberries. I'd literally count out every single blueberry I ate. Oh my fucking god. Like grapes too, every mushroom I ate. It was, I don't know, I was just like, and I think also since my sister was at school, I also started thinking about like I can't do this in college because I'm not going to be making my own food. Like I'll be at dining halls and like eating out with friends, assuming I'd go to a place where they had restaurants off campus. And I was just like, how am I going to keep this up in college? And like, I need to eat this way in order to maintain the appearance I have. And I started having this internal, like, I don't know. I was like, I can't keep up with this. Like, this doesn't feel sustainable. And I also remember, so my sister's comment really helped kickstart like my thoughts of choosing recovery. And then I think the biggest thing was my dad made a comment, and I think my mom, I don't know if she ever made comments, but she also, so this is, I want to talk to her about this on an episode, but I didn't realize how bad the 90s and early 2000s were with diet culture. And I mean, I grew up in like, so I was born in 2003 and I grew up in late 2000s, and I just remember like even going to grocery stores, and they still have this today. I don't know to this extent, at least where I live, but the whole magazines of, if you want to drop 10 pounds for the summer or whatever it is, eat these recipes, or look at what this model is doing to look this certain way, or whatever. But like the whole like the Kate Moss, like nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, and that literally encompasses what the 90s and early 2000s stood for. And I didn't understand what she had gone through and how much of that had been like drilled into her brain. Like I didn't understand that's the way, like that she just thinks that's the normal way to think about things. And obviously if that's everything you're being fed, like everywhere you look in the media, that's what you're being told is normal, and like you should be thinking about these things, like whatever. So I don't know if she ever saw it as like a negative thing. I think the dieting, and also she was like a yo-yo dieter as a kid. I remember like always her like I just remember her always being on like a diet or talking about her body, or like just negative comments around food, which is something we've talked about too. And she has made comments on my appearance in the past, and I think now she knows not to, but we definitely had some conversations and fights over these things in the past, and I also want to talk to her about this. And I know a lot of my friends have issues with their moms and the comments their moms make to them about their appearance, as well as so many other things. So I definitely want to talk about that with her on an episode, because I feel like that would be super beneficial and insightful for a lot of people. And also just hearing more about like her perspective. And we've truly never had an open conversation about my journey and what I've gone through. She follows my Instagram account, and she's like literally my biggest supporter on there. She likes every story and swipes up on everything and comments all the time, but I still don't know if she fully understands the extent of what I went through. So that would be interesting to have a really like genuine, open, emotional conversation on that. So I'll try to plan something like that in the future. But anyway, so my dad though, and I know for him to make a comment like this, like he knew how emotionally unstable I was at the time, and I'd snap really easily at people, and obviously because I was like hangry all the time. And he made a comment about how, like, he's like, oh, are you sure, like, he saw my breakfast one morning, and he's like, oh, are you sure, like, you're eating enough? And I was like, yeah, like, this is fine, I've been eating this blah 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 for the whole whatever, and I feel fine. And I just remember the like feeling like the fact that he said something about that took a lot for him to say, and it meant he was really concerned, because just like we've never really had a really open relationship. It's a lot better now. And I feel like, and also he was going through a lot of stress with work and everything as a kid, so I didn't really have that much of a relationship with him up until like I'd say high school, when he started working from home a lot more once COVID started, because he'd go into New York City like 5 days a week, and I'd literally never see him unless it was at a sports event on the weekend. So I just knew that like for him to actually like notice something that a habit I was doing, and for him to comment on it and have concern, I was like, okay, this is probably a bigger issue than I think it is. And it's funny because I look back at photos from this time in my life, and I was like, why? I just remember thinking I was not skinny enough. I was like, I still have like a fold when I fold over this way, or like cellulite here, or if I wear this, it doesn't fit. It's a little too tight around the thigh area here, or like I don't know, just like I still thought I wasn't small enough, and I look back at photos and I'm like, oh my god, like I don't even recognize that person. My eyes are like black, they're like lightless, like there's like slightly sunk in, like it's very, I just didn't look like myself. And my sister described me when I went up to visit her as looking like a skeleton almost, and I didn't see it this is something we talked about at a later date, but now I look back at photos and I see that, and I'm like, how did I let it get this bad? Or how did I not notice that it was this bad? And at the time, though, I was like, I didn't see anything was wrong, and the person I saw in the mirror was not the person I see looking at these photos today, which is great that I've grown this far and I can recognize this stuff now, but it's sad that at the time I still thought I wasn't enough, and I needed to keep going with these habits and being completely miserable. And I think I just like those comments, and then I was just like, I'm so tired of this. I feel horrible, and I just can't keep living like this. And I think I don't know exactly, like, so I never went to like an inpatient or outpatient center, and I don't know if it's because, like, one, I never talked to my parents about this really, and I know they probably knew what I was going through, but I don't think any of them had ever experienced something to this degree, or at least like knew how to talk about it with me. And also, like, again, like at the time I didn't have a very open relationship with either of my parents, and like we just didn't talk about emotions or like feelings or things we were going through unless it was school or sports or like something more positive. And now we can talk about things a lot more openly, which is great. But at the time I was like, I'm not gonna go, like, and I didn't even know like these types of therapies and like treatment was an option. I didn't really do any research on that. And so this is about the time that I started my account. I started at the beginning of my junior year, but I was so grateful that some of the people I started following from the get-go were very big on promoting food freedom and intuitive eating and body neutrality, and just healing your relationship with food and posting about their recovery journeys. And that just happened to be the community I like mostly fell into. And I've unfollowed some people here and there along the way that I realized have been a little toxic for me to view their content. But I think that was a huge part of my recovery journey, and I honestly just did it, like a lot of it, on my own. Now that I think about it, like I didn't talk to my parents about this. I didn't have anyone in my life that I could talk to about at the time, because like none of my friends had really gone through anything like that, or they didn't comment on the way I looked, or like, oh, like my, like in high school, like you don't really talk about this stuff, right? Like it's not, you're just talking about guys and like school and AP tests, like midterms, and who said what, and sports games and whatever. Like you don't talk this about this like deep, really like intense, like heavy stuff. And so I kind of just like, I was like, okay, like what's the first step I need to do? And I was like, okay, let's start eating dessert again a little bit more frequently. And I didn't stop counting calories from the get-go. I just started increasing how many I had, because I was like, okay, this is probably not enough or sustainable for me. So I started adding in like other foods, and I started baking a little bit more again. And because I had been doing a lot of healthier alternatives, which I think it's great if you have like, obviously if you have some sort of sensitivity to regular flour, or like if you're diabetic or need to watch your sugar intake. I completely understand that, and that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here, but I'm saying that. And I, like, again, if it does make you feel better, like it fuels you and you genuinely enjoy the way it tastes, more so than like the quote unquote traditional version of a recipe, like go for it. But when you're voluntarily choosing these options over the traditional version simply because it's either lower in calories, you think it's healthier for you, or you think it's morally, it's like the superior option. Like, that's not healthy at all. So I started incorporating more regular flour back into my diet, regular sugar. Like, I use a lot of maple syrup, coconut sugar, which is literally just like, it's not even that like much different from brown. Like, people demonize brown sugar when really coconut sugar is like not that much different, which is funny. But I just thought it was like, I put it on this pedestal and I'm like, brown sugar is like down here, like, you don't eat it, it's horrible for you, like everything that people promote on the internet. And I just saw it as this horrible thing, and I was like, you know what, it's fucking delicious. Like, I'm gonna keep adding this into my oatmeal and all my baked goods, because banana bread tastes so much better when it's made with regular sugar, in my opinion. So I really love baking and cooking, so I started adding these regular versions of things back into my life. And I realized finally that chickpea brownies are absolutely atrocious, and black bean brownies, and there's nothing compares to regular brownies. You can't say that those are brownies. You can call them like chocolate slice squares or fudge squares or something like that, but that's not a brownie at all, because a brownie is like truly one of life's greatest simple pleasures, in my opinion. They're just so good. And I started making these swaps, and then COVID hit, actually, which is my like March of 2020. So this was like my junior year of high school, and it was really nice being at home, and school was a joke at the time. Like, I don't think we had a lot of tests or exams, or if we did, it was a lot of like open notes, and like AP tests were all online that year, which was super easy. And I wasn't as stressed out, and I was able to spend more time at home and like de-stressing and hanging out with my family, which was really, really helpful and pivotal in my recovery journey as well. I had a lot more time to bake at home and like focus on my relationship with food and my body. And I think my relationship with food came first. The body is something that came second. Still working on that today. Now exercise, we're working on that as well. And I kind of cut off working out excessively at this point as well. I stopped making myself run as much, and I do love running, but like I was doing it excessively. And like, for example, on my birthday, my sophomore year, I forced myself to run like 3 miles on the treadmill so that I could have like my dinner of pad thai from like my favorite Thai place in my hometown. And I was like, you can't eat it unless you go run and like earn it or burn off whatever you're gonna eat later. And what's another example of that? Like, or just like if I knew I was gonna go out with friends later, like I'd work out excessively to compensate. Or, and also this is like, okay, so there's obviously a lot more in this episode. It's getting I don't even know what the time is, but it's getting longer, and I do have to head to class soon. So, okay, we're gonna make this 2 parts actually. So I'm gonna end it soonish, but what else did I want to say about this? Oh yeah, so then like so also it was a mix of like restricting and then binging at the time, and it was mainly restricting in the form of like calories, but I'd have those quote unquote cheat days where I let myself go like crazy and eat these foods that like I didn't let myself consume any other time in the month. For example, like a friend's birthday dinner I knew was coming up, or if my family wanted to go out to dinner and go get like pizza or something, or we were ordering pizza, or we wanted to do like a baking night, because I'd been restricting these foods for so long, and when I finally had the chance to eat it, and like I felt like I earned it, and I'd restricted long enough to eat whatever these foods were, I'd literally go crazy and like pretty much black out and just like eat the whole thing. Even though I'd feel like horrible after, my gut hurt, my stomach was so fucked up at the time too, and I did have a lot of stomach issues when I started recovery and coming out of this, which I've heard is the case for a lot of people, and I don't know like the exact scientific biological reasons why, but I think that would be an interesting episode to talk about as well, kind of how like restricting really fucks up your body and takes a toll on your just systems as well. And but I would like black out and eat like the whole thing and feel so shitty afterwards, and then I'd feel guilty though, even though I felt like I'd earned it. I'd be like, why did you have no control over that at all? And I really had no control when it came to these moments. Like, I just eat everything, and even though I was past fullness and I knew, like, I was full and I was satisfied and I didn't want to keep eating, I'd keep eating because I was like, this is my only chance to eat this until next time we're allowed to again, which could be a while from now. And I was going to need to get my whole fix now, and like, I didn't understand the concept of, like, if you order takeout, you can eat as much as you want that night and then save whatever it is for tomorrow for lunch or dinner, and you don't have to eat it all in one day if it's like a quote-unquote guilty pleasure food or something like that. Like, you can eat it multiple days in a row. It doesn't need to be saved for special days or doesn't need to be earned or whatever. But I think there's like a few more examples that I forgot to mention of like some specific behaviors I had. I remember this was in the summer of my junior year, and my friend had a birthday party this evening, and I had preseason practice like in the morning, early afternoon, and I went out to get acai bowls with my friends after preseason practice, and I was like, this is a unhealthier food, so I can't eat before dinner because I didn't like I consumed too many calories, and I need to wait until dinner so that I don't overdo my or like I don't cross this threshold, you know? And so I like literally didn't let myself eat from like 12 till 6 p.m. or whatever the dinner was. And I literally had, first of all, that's just not safe, and you shouldn't be starving. And this isn't, I don't know, maybe I'll talk about this in the next episode, but like the whole intermittent fasting and Gwyneth Paltrow's like intuitive fasting book, which is like complete bullshit. Like, what the hell even is that? Like, what does that even mean? But I don't like the whole concept of fasting at all. And I know people do it for religious reasons, and that's not at all what I'm referring to. I'm like referring it to when you intentionally do it for like restrictive habits and you're dealing with like disordered eating habits. That's what I'm referring to here. And I don't think anyone should be doing that at all. Like, just eat when your body tells you you're hungry, or when it's craving something. Just listen to your body, because you shouldn't be, your hunger cues and craving cues don't run on a clock, and you're allowed to eat whenever you're hungry, whenever you want something. Like, it doesn't need to be only from a certain time span. But basically, I had waited till later that day, and I just had a whole preseason practice that morning, and I was running around in the heat all day, and like I didn't realize how much more I actually needed to refuel myself afterwards for all the work I had done. And I was like talking to my dad. Okay, so this was also going into like that right before that fall where he made that comment to me that I mentioned earlier. And so now that I'm thinking about it, he probably started to pick up on this stuff before I realized at the time. But I felt super lightheaded around like an hour before I had to leave, but I wouldn't let myself eat. And I thought it was from the heat or something. And in practice earlier, and I was like, I feel lightheaded. Like, I felt really weak. I couldn't like stand up and stand properly. And now I knew I was feeling fake because I needed food. And he's like, oh, you should probably eat something. And I was like, no, like, it's okay. Like, I didn't want to eat because I knew I'd be getting pasta at dinner. And I was like, I want to wait till then. And he made me have some like water crackers, because that's like the only thing I'd actually eat, because there's like no substance in those, which like they're really fun to have in like soups and if you're sick and stuff. But I was like, oh, I'm okay eating these because there's like no calories in them, so it's fine. And he made me have those, and I felt a little bit better, and I ate at dinner and stuff. But yeah, I think like also my hunger cues were like, I didn't get them back till probably like 6 months after. At least I didn't get a proper like stomach rumbling or like an indicator that I was like, oh, like I'm hungry now, like let me go grab something to eat. The first few months after like COVID hit and I was at home and I started recovery, like once I started reintroducing these foods, fewer foods and foods I'd been restricting and cutting out for so long, I was like, I couldn't get enough of them, and I had this insane hunger. And I know it's something a lot of people talk about when they're in recovery, like this the concept of, it's like this insane extreme hunger. And I think it stems from like it's like the mental restriction, right? Like, even though you might be full when you're eating these foods, like mentally you've restricted them for so long, and like you're just trying to get your fill of all the times you've craved these foods or been hungry and you've wanted to eat them, or just basically you've been cutting them off for so long. Like, your body's just wanting to fill all of the cravings it's gotten since the last time you let yourself have it. And I was just like, I put on some weight, and I got a little like self-conscious about that, but it's because I was like actually eating enough, and I was in a healthier body. I got my period like probably a little under a year after, like I think, like, when was it? It was like fall of my senior year of high school, so that was a little bit while later, but I'll talk about that in the next part of this. But yeah, like I didn't have any hunger cues in the beginning, and my cravings were just like all out of whack because I had restricted all of these foods for so long, and I had this extreme hunger, and I was like, what the hell is going on? What is all this? I had no idea what it was at the time, and I thought it was bad, but I was like, I can't stop eating this. And I remember my cousin came over, and we made like banana bread, and we were watching like a movie, and I literally just kept going back for another slice, and I almost ate like over half the pan, because I just couldn't get enough of it. It was so good, and now I know why that was the case. I was just trying to get my fix of what I had been cutting out for so long, and yeah. So I think like a few months after that, I started becoming a little bit more intuitive. Still toxic to a certain degree, and it still didn't have this level of awareness that I do now, and kind of have started to develop since talking to people about their own struggles. And I still didn't have really anyone to talk to at the time, so again, doing it all myself and not having any idea what I was doing, what was going on, what was happening to my body, why I was reacting the way I was to these things. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here for this episode, because I do have to get ready for class. But I think we talked for a while. I thought it'd be hard to do more solo episodes and talk for a long time, but I guess I have a lot to talk about with this one. But so next episode we're gonna continue talking more about this, and this was more so the side of my journey, of my relationship with food in my body, how it's evolved, and how it developed into an eating disorder at one point, and the early stages of my recovery journey. And next episode will be a little bit more positive, and I'll be talking about like the people I've met who've really helped me, the experiences I've had since moving away from home and coming to college that have helped me as well, and kind of where I am today currently, and how I got to this point once I started my recovery journey. So yeah, I hope this episode was not super triggering or like deep or intense for anyone. It was just really for me to share more of what I've gone through, and I know that everyone has their own story with this, right? And it's crazy how many of us have like a similar story with this, and maybe it's like it stems from different things in our childhood, but we've all had our own struggles with the way we look, and the way we think about food, and the way we eat, and the habits we have around how much we let ourselves eat, and like the foods we think are okay to consume. And I just wanted to share this, so if anyone can relate to what I've gone through, or it's just nice hearing, right, that someone else has gone through this stuff as well, because as much as it's such a common thing that people go through, it's still so stigmatized to talk about. And I think just hearing someone else talk about if they've gone through a similar experience, like, it's incredibly helpful to know you're not alone in this, because it is a lot to go through, and it's hard to work through these things. And that's my main goal with this, to help people kind of work through these things and hear from other people who have had similar struggles, and just knowing they're not alone. It's nothing to feel ashamed about. So many more people are going through it than you realize, but you can get through this, and you can recover and overcome these negative habits and this whole control that food has over you. Like, you can overcome it and live a life that's free of all of what diet culture promotes. But yeah, thank you so much for listening today. If you want to stay up to date with some of my other content, you can follow me on Instagram at Eats by Emma, and also check out my website. It's just my full name, Emma Jepsen, JEPSEN.com. To find some of my, if you want to find like a recipe I have, make some of my baked oats recipes. Those are like my favorite things ever to make, and a lot of people seem to like to make them as well. And some of my other content that I have, and also just hearing when I post a new episode, if I have a Q&A episode, if you want to drop any questions or have any comments on things I've talked about. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.